I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you would like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheists and deconversion issues and Bible theology and a little politics from time to time in relationship to those issues. Today is a Friday video, and I'm trying to address comments and questions. It's not quite as bad as last time, but it is definitely a bunch of questions that were, and comments that were addressed fairly quickly from up to a week ago. I'm going to start off with Barry Sumner, who has commented a few times, biblical eschatology, at what event coming about would you think? Hey, thank you for responding today to earlier questions. The pretext is due to dyslexia. You say that there's much to prove, papers reviewed, and no proof by peers. I'm absolutely lethal with a pen and paper, but brilliant with matter. I have the gift of engineering. Thank you, Jesus. No qualifications due to the inability to put my name on an examination. Thanks, Satan. I've never seen matter put itself together. Take one bolt, not expect, shake, bolt, close box. What do you think would happen? I've written a paper on this, honestly. Okay, first of all, the peer review process is rather lengthy. And for good reason, okay? It starts out with a very simple thing where the person creates a hypothesis and then creates a way to test the hypothesis and has to come up with a way that their hypothesis would be disproven. That's the difference between a lot of what I would consider theist arguments, where you just say, therefore God. Well, what would disprove the existence of God to you? And most theists say, well, nothing would. Well, that's not the way science works. Science, and I'm no expert, by the way. I'm just kind of sitting there saying this. But as somebody who has read a little bit about it anyway. But basically what you're dealing with is a process where you have to work hard to prove that what you say is true. And you have to have the data to back it up. You have to have a peer review process where multiple people read your paper. Then you present it to the scientific community, and a lot of those scientific community, if they have alternate theories or whatever, they're going to work very, very hard to, disprove your theory. And so I think the real problem there that I have with your comment is I don't think that you necessarily understand what's going on there. People a lot smarter than you and me obviously don't have a problem with understanding these things at a finer detail. And all the evidence, including hard evidence, indicates, for instance, that cosmology did start out with a great expansion, which is actually a more accurate way to put it than the Big Bang. And it, peer review, particularly for, say, evolution and all this other stuff, yeah, it is extensive. Theory in the scientific sense of the word is a body of evidence that proves a particular point and a way of doing things. When I hear theists use it wrongly, it's like, dude, you need to go back and study what people are actually saying. As far as whether you have all the skills and stuff and you want to thank God and then you want to blame Satan, on what basis do you make the distinction? Okay, you'd have to say that God created the way you are, including the dyslexia, which means you're going to have to look at how God is blessing you with that dyslexia or how he's testing you with it. As far as whether you've never seen matter create itself, that's not the issue. The theory would be that we know that matter and energy trade places and go back and forth. So it's not necessarily a creation process so much as an expansion process and other things. Now, my understanding isn't that great. And Barry, if you really want to get into these things, you probably are going to have to look at some way of getting that information, maybe listening to an audiobook or whatever but there are definitely people that have written on the subject. Is it? Krauss, I think, is the one who wrote A Universe from Nothing, and I know that that's on audiobook. And if you can listen to him, I think you'll find that they're not just whistling Dixie when they talk about this stuff. They actually can prove it. Freebird of Reason, great as usual. Interesting comments today. Plenty of them. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Thanks, Freebird. You're always appreciated. The next thing I want to talk about is a big exchange I had with Archangel Metatron. And I went back and forth with him. His big thing is, behold the atheist slayer theorem. God is the singular responsibility for the Big Bang, and according to the laws of conversion, that singularity had to be equal or greater than all of the mass, energy, and intelligence in the universe, past, present, future combined. And since things are neither created or destroyed, only translated or transformed, this means God became the universe. God is omnipresent, omniscient. God is everywhere, including you and me. Okay. And the exchange I got into with this comment was that, to me, that's a classic God of the gaps. We don't know what the singularity was, and you don't get to just throw what you think it is there as the answer. Sorry, it is, it's not really the thing where you can say, if you don't know something, that you get to put your theory in there. Now, this also went into a discussion on biblical prophecy, and I brought out the one from Tyre, from Ezekiel 26, I believe, where it is pretty clearly stated that Tyre would be destroyed and it'd only be a place for fishnets. Well, if you Google Tyre today, you will find a pretty substantial little port town, as I recall. And it isn't destroyed and has never been destroyed, and was one of those things that that's a biblical prophecy that just did not come to pass. Now you can say that they repented, but there's no record of that either. And so that's one of those great biblical failures. As far as prophecy goes in general, so what? Okay, a lot of people prognosticate and get it right, and a lot of them get it wrong. That's not the issue when it comes to prophecy. Prophecy, according to the Bible, has to be 100% accurate, and the prophet can't also teach people to disobey the commandments of God. Those are the two tests of a prophet biblically. If you fail those tests, the penalty is stoning. So, I don't know. My real problem with this exchange, I guess, is, gee, dude, you kind of assume that you know something that you can't know. You're either saying the singularity is God, which you don't know, and so you can't really state that as a fact. That's God of the gaps. It's argument from ignorance. And then you're talking about biblical prophecy, which, dude, there's tons of missed prophecies too, but you won't hear about them from the pulpit. And as for your atheist slayer, I'm still an atheist, so it didn't slay me. Eric Thorpe. The name Jehovah was invented by someone who was part of an organization that the Jehovah's say is under Satan's control, according to numerous JW publications. See Aid to Bible Understanding, page 884. The name Jehovah is not an important name is more important name in Freemasonry, and high degrees they sacrifice to Satan. The governing body members of Jehovah's Witnesses are pathological liars and cowards. Yes, listen to God at the Australian Royal Convention as an example. Jehovah's Witnesses teach that they have the truth, but they can never put their finger on what that truth is. In fact, if you were to teach the truth that Russell Rutherford spoke, you'd be disfellowshipped as an apostate. Everything taught since 1879 has failed to come true. Their defense were not inspired prophets, but nothing you ever said came true. You're blasphemous liars under Satan's control. Obviously, you would not serve the Almighty God. The hubris and self-righteousness of Jehovah is breathtaking. So glad I got away from their mind control. Well, Eric, I'm glad you escaped the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I don't know. There's my problem with any viewpoint, and don't get me wrong, I love the comment. It's a good comment, but your point is well taken that the Jehovah's Witnesses, with a lot of their prophecies, have just not come to pass. And once again, based on the biblical standard of a prophet, they would be considered false prophets. And so they thus lose. The real problem that I have, of course, I don't know that the Freemasons sacrificed to Satan. Freemasonry is a little bit of a mystery to me, so I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to comment on something I don't really know about. But you're right. A lot of founders of cults, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, if what they taught originally was put out there, yeah, they would be considered apostate and disfellowshipped. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, my biggest problem with the Jehovah's Witnesses isn't the spiritual stuff, because I don't believe in that stuff. My largest problem with the Jehovah's Witnesses is the deprogramming and the deconversion issues that follow somebody that leaves that stuff. There's just so much crap to unravel after that. After the more cultic an experience you have, the more there is to unravel. And that just, I don't know. That's just the big issue for me. You can take 17,000 Religious Sex Visions of the Future. This is from 1-2 Van L. Short-term and long-term, and all will be 99.999% wrong. That's where we're all going to be thinking critically, or we all need to be thinking critically at the present time. I would say that I think when people are right in their prophecies, if you throw enough crap at the wall, some of it's going to stick. You're going to make something right. And I think the real problem that I've had with the doom and gloomers for years, for generations, is simply their continued lack of not being able to get anything right. I've lost track. In my lifetime, I swear, the people that have predicted the end of the world, or Revelation's going to start, or whatever, have been legion. They always run to that passage, God is not slack concerning his promises. And I'm like, yeah, except is it God? I don't think so. I think a bunch of people wrote a bunch of predictions, and when they didn't come to pass, it kind of looked like egg on their face. Southern Boss Lady. Great name. Awesome video. Yes, please throw the track away. Okay, I want to stop there. I am going to file that away in case somebody references it in these videos, and then I can pull it out and read it for truth. Okay, that way that nobody accuses me of misquoting or whatever. I personally think that they're just pieces of paper. JDOs are hard to wake up because they are captive of a concept, meaning that they believe they're the only true religion on earth, and they're the only ones preaching a life-saving work. They believe that they will see all their dead loved ones resurrected here on earth, and they also have hope to live forever in paradise earth. All these things are very comforting to them. The world in their mind is corrupt and controlled by Satan and the devil. Nothing is good in it. All right, well, can I also say that they might be a cult? But I want you to think about your own views, that you're going to be in heaven or somebody's going to go to hell, or whatever views you might have. They're equally as ridiculous. Okay, you have no proof of them either. As far as Satan goes, I don't believe in God. And yeah, Satan's kind of out there too. Although I will say that as a writer, somebody who writes fiction on the side for fun, various concepts, spiritual concepts, make for great urban fantasy. So it's kind of, and fantasy writing in general. So I still use things like Satan and devils and things like that, but I also use other things as well. So I just don't know. As far as whether all these things are comforting is, I think all afterlife viewpoints in any religion are very comforting to the people that follow them, aren't they? So who's corrupt and who's what? It's tough. A JW may have to experience their own personal internal Armageddon, meaning they will have at some time an internal shakeup on their own mind and feelings about an issue. Once this happens, they will start to think critically over the veil. Their eyes will start to be removed. But we don't give up. They may thank us for planting the seed. Yeah, I don't know if any JWs have, watched this video. yeah, I hope that I've planted a seed in some of them saying, hey, dude, you ain't got nothing here. You ain't got nothing here. And you need to think about what you're saying. Southern Boss Lady again. And the other one was on both of them are part 3 of the Jehovah Witnesses letter thing. As a born in Jehovah Witnesses, I can honestly say the WT governing body stripped of us our personal self, our freedom to choose higher education, celebrate holidays, accepting a blood transfusion, shedding friends and family. We became the slaves of by knocking on doors disguised as life-saving work in order to further the agenda of accumulating riches on earth. This is done by means of their real estate, land, hotels, apartments, houses, cars, boats, yachts, private jets, and the list goes on. The organization is hurtful and ruthless. As a side note, I always wanted to be a cheerleader, go to the prom, football and basketball games. Couldn't do any of it. It was a very sad time for me. Yes, the organization strips you of your childhood, really to your individual, your personal self, your freedom, and I mean everything. The world in general has no idea the trauma this organization puts on its members. They see the witnesses all dressed up on Sunday morning, sharing a message from the Bible and using their own time to do so, but underneath is very sinister. You would never see a witness just go and take a meal to someone, clean their house, or cut their grass. Oh, no, they only do it for something if they think the person might be a witness today. Other than that, you're on your own. I see true love outside the organization more so than I did inside. Your report of the Jehovah Witnesses is a very common one. I have lost track of the number of Jehovah Witnesses that were ex-Jehovah Witnesses that I talked to that comment along those same lines. The idea of the control structure, and I think Telltale Atheist made this statement, so I want to give him credit for it, but he makes the statement that they're preparing to be in control on the new earth, and so that's how they set up their organization to be in absolute control. And a lot of what they're trying to do is create a culture where they don't have to write out rules, but everybody just does it. Now, as far as only seeing advantage, this is kind of my whole point of doing the series on Jehovah Witnesses, is it's interesting to me who they target and who they go after. They don't go after people that know their stuff. I mean, if they know it's me and they've watched these videos, they're not going to knock on my door. Okay, because they know that I'm armed to the teeth and I'm just, going at it. I'm going to go at them, and they know that. They're looking for people that don't know what they believe. They don't know what the truth is. They don't know anything. And so they're looking for weak people, maybe people that need something, and they will use that charity action to get an inroad as long as they think that you might become a Jehovah Witnesses. And so that's kind of one of those things. But yeah, I think when you get to the elders and their little boards and their backroom deals, yeah, it gets damn sinister to me. And, I'll be honest, I don't like them. Okay, I think they're up to something a little bit more than all the rest of it. But yeah, they make a lot of money. And they discourage education. They discourage a lot of things. You can be robbed of a lot of your life. And a lot of people are very thankful that they get out early. But yeah, I get it. Victoria, from the Friday video, last Friday. Love your channel. P.S. Jumping subscribers. Hint, JW. Yeah, I don't know that they're JW subscribers. They may be. I have heard from a lot of them in these comments, so I'm thinking ex-JWs. I think the JWs, when they haven't really commented on these things, so I'm fairly sure they consider me a hard target and they're going to go move on somewhere else. They might just, do something different, but okay. Electio, I hope I'm saying that right. Part 4, my final thoughts on the JWs. Just gave me a great job. Thank you, sir. Freebird of Reason. On the part 4 of the JW series. Just ordering stoning to death doesn't need any more thought. How can that be okay? Never, ever can stoning your wife to death have been right. How can Christianity or any Bible-led religion condone this as once a good thing? Religion will dull the mind in these wicked acts. There are so many stoning orders. Think about the brutality of this. I was seeing on TV how shocking it will be, the suffering and the screaming. We would complain until it stopped. Would a loving father agree with us? Not me. Good talk. Thanks for sharing. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure how anybody justifies the morality of a lot of the Old Testament. I know a lot of people, when I talked about slavery, I pointed out that a lot of apologists try to say, oh, it wasn't like the other slavery. It was just, you only were a slave for 7 years in a way of getting rid of debt. No, there's two different types of slavery according to the Old Testament. That type of slavery that you're talking about is only for Jews, Jewish males who held other Jewish males as slaves. If you were a Jewish female enslaved into slavery, or you were an outsider outside the Jewish faith and you were captured, you were property and you would remain property for the rest of your life. The slavery we had in the United States was absolutely justified by preaching of those passages that I'm referring to. And I don't ask me for the verses off time. You want a real enlightening Bible study sometime, just look up the word slave and just center yourself on the books of, Exodus through Deuteronomy, and you'll be enlightened as to what the Bible really talks about when it comes to slaves. So, but yeah, the stoning thing, it's interesting that the Bible presents such cruel forms of capital punishment. Stoning is a real cruel thing because you're constantly being hit by rocks until somebody has the good mercy to actually hit you in the head, so maybe you get knocked out and you can't feel anything. But you're literally crushed to death and beaten up, and it's got to be a horrible way to die. But when you look at religious figures and how they choose to kill people, particularly Christians and such, it's always something cruel, like they're trying to use the suffering, and this was true during the Counter-Reformation, because they would literally, by burning people at stake or torturing people, they were, causing the evil to leave through suffering. And it's that kind of mentality. There's a famous statement, good people will always do good things and bad people will always do bad things. But to get good people to do bad things, you need religion. And personally, no, when I look at some of the penalties for some of the crimes, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't seem to be eye for an eye. Adultery is a good example. The penalty is death for adultery in the Old Testament. I don't know. From my perspective, adultery has its own punishment, which I have firsthand experience on. And quite frankly, nobody gets killed, okay, usually. Murder is a different story, but, having an affair it hurts a lot of feelings and it's a breach of trust, but it doesn't kill anybody. So I don't understand why it would be a death penalty as defense. But thanks again, Freebird. Great comment. Nikos Yaloris. And this is final part of my series on JWs again. Thank you, sir, for exposing this evil garden, the Watchtower cult. I was just flabbergasted when I got this thing, and I said, what would be fun? Watching an atheist react to a Jehovah's Witnesses tract and letter as he reads it. And it was also kind of a test for me, because as a fairly new atheist, I don't know all my defenses and arguments quite yet. And I believe in those things and learning those things because people come at you, especially if you're a pastor that used to be a pastor and becomes an atheist. People ask you all kinds of stupid questions, and you got to be ready for them. So I just did this more as this is how I would talk to JWs today. And that's all it was. And you know what? I'm glad to have been a part of maybe hopefully getting somebody to change their mind. And Nikos comments again, the Watchtower cult is ruining young and old people. I hope the sadistic organization cult disappears from the face of the earth. I really wish all cults would disappear from the face of the earth. There's a lot of things that are done. Corgu 55, and this is also the final part, where he says, thanks for the discourse on Hyland. I've read everything he wrote, realizing his quote that all religions are absurd was accurate was the first step in finding my way out of religion. I live in New Mexico. I often think of doing a pilgrimage to his grave in Colorado. Oh boy, one Heinlein fan to another. Yeah, I've read everything he's ever wrote in novel form, and I've read a ton of his short stories. I even have the book published after his death called Grumbles from the Grave, where a lot of his correspondence and a lot of his thoughts and some of the stuff he does. I think he even did a speech at a couple places where they're still recorded on YouTube. A fascinating man. But I'm going to tell you his role in my deconversion. Once I started reading him, you will begin to realize that he's very skeptical of everything. And I think it's when I read Stranger in a Strange Land, which was published in 1961, and recently I got the complete and unabridged where they put all the stuff that they edited out for space. Now it's like absurdly long, but when I read it, the Man from Mars observation that all the religions were the same and that none of them really offered the truth was a big part of me rethinking my own conversion experience. What difference did I make? So yeah, a pilgrimage might be in order to all the people that helped us on our way to being free. And Robert Heinlein would definitely be on my list, and probably a few others like Christopher Hitchens. Definitely somebody I'd want to pay my respects to the memory of. Justin Porter. Here in Brisbane, Australia, a jealous husband poured petrol over his wife and 3 children, set them on fire, and the news called him a despicable monster. His name is Justin Porter. I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and I knocked on people's doors for 22 years with the Watchtower. I'm now an agnostic atheist. I don't believe the Bible or any other man-made religion. Just believe God is Mother Nature and we're in her image, and she doesn't write books, and we can discover her with a microscope and a telescope. Check out my YouTube channel. Find Justin Porter XJW, where I film Australian flying foxbacks. I talk about I left Jehovah's Witnesses, why I don't believe the Bible. I enjoyed your video, brother. Justin Porter XJW. Oh, my name is Justin Porter. Okay, yeah. I've heard about a lot of, death despicable acts. Here's what I really think about some of the religious things I think that really I found despicable, even in my own version of Christianity that I followed. In my more fundamentalist days, when I was an Assembly of God minister, I must have seen at least 3 men who justified the fact that their wives wouldn't obey them. They would justify the fact that they would be abusive, and I'm talking physical and mental and sexual. Particularly, one man told me, she's supposed to submit to me. So yeah, one day she didn't want to have sex, and I had sex with her anyway. I'm like, well, thanks for admitting that you raped her, but I don't know what I'm going to do about it. But back then, I was like, oh, God damn, it's when you see these moral actions. Justin Porter, I'm sorry, I think I confused. I read it wrong, his name. I said his name instead of my name is Justin Porter. I want to make that clear. You're not the guy that burned everybody up in Brisbane. But I want to let you know it's the constant bullshit of what people do in the name of God. I mean, I think what people evilly do in the name of God is despicable, but it happens at multiple levels. Yeah, people kill each other. Yeah, there's rape done in the name of God. You can see people fly airplanes into Twin Towers in the name of God or Allah. I'm going to tell you, on a lower level where nobody's getting killed, the amount of sexual, mental, physical abuse that takes place in the name of God Yeah, yeah, that's off the chart. Um, uh, Tony Jackman, are you not contradicting yourself? You say that religious people have no proof of life after death, but you have no proof there isn't either. Can you show proof that once you're dead, that that's the end? Okay, first of all, uh, I'm I, I'm sorry for the confusion, and I think I want to thank Grayton W for kind of speaking for me. He did a great job, so I didn't really feel the need to comment. Um, I would say that there's no good evidence for life after death. I mean, can you show me a picture? Okay, so why would I believe in something that I still haven't had evidence for? Okay, as far as whether I'm saying there is no life after death, I'm going to conduct myself according to what seems obvious to me, which is once you're dead, you're dead. And until somebody can prove to me that that's not true, then I think you're going to have to say, no. Don't get me wrong. I liked your comment, and I love the exchange. You two guys, Grayton W. and Tony Jackman, this is the kind of exchange I want to see here. You're welcome to have these kind of exchanges in my comment section. Uh, but it was civil. I want to give a shout out to both of you. You did a great job talking about it back and forth. And at the end of the day, no, I'm just saying that I haven't been given sufficient proof to believe in any form of life after death, so I don't. And I act accordingly. Yeah, sometimes we're going, the reason, semantics and being pedantic can happen a lot. The one thing that I've learned to do with a lot of this stuff is try to steel man a person's comment and give them the benefit of the doubt. So if I'm saying something that seems like, oh, you're being really absolutist, no, not really, not really. Um, uh, David Smith, good talk, Rabyd Atheist. I would like to talk to you. I'm not sure that that's going to be possible. I don't know a way I would contact you other than this forum. So I guess you'd have to tell me the reason why you want to talk to me, and so on and so forth. And then you follow that up with JWs are the very thing they're preaching against. Yes, 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 they are. And, you know, they, I don't know. I don't like them. It's become a real thing with me that I just don't like these cults. They seem to really just bother the hell out of me. Um, Keen, you're getting near to 100 subscribers. I remember when I first came to your channel, you were happy with 4. The gap excuse reminds me when somebody says a structure from out they can't explain, like Stonehenge, Easter Island, or the Great Pyramids is the work of aliens or the UFOs. The whole prove me wrong is like a magician saying with the sleight of hand, but some type of supernatural occurrence. From what I can tell, most of magicians appear to be atheists because they have a keen understanding of human gullibility. Do you feel the Bible is so anti-magician because the writers knew magicians understood the con game? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they were anti-magicians except for the priests who were doing magic, tricks. Like Moses's little tricks at the burning bush. You a good person with sleight of hand magic tricks today could go back in the past and think people would think they were a god. And I think that people back then figured the stuff out. But I think the Bible is very much against religion or against magic because otherwise people would figure it out and get the con. Marcus Bronze, as a former Jehovah's Witnesses, I think I can fill in some blanks. Beginning of the JW was named Charles Taze Russell. That's right. Thank you, sir. They were known as the Russellites. The second man to take over the religion, which was named the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, was Rutherford. He's a former Baptist and a lawyer. Today, they were more commonly known as Jehovah's Witnesses. Since leaving, I have uncovered many, many disturbing things. These are but a few. Harboring pedophiles for many years, just in Australia alone, in front of the Australian Royal Commission Supreme Court, it was proven 100% there were 1,006 child sex offenders, and none have ever spent a day in prison. Imagine how many more there are. We're approximately 64 globally 8 million since the religion's inception, or I would say a cult, which is what it is. They have viewed the year 1914 as a formula to predict the end of the world or Armageddon every time they've gotten it wrong. The most recent miscalculation was 1975, when I was 10 years old at the time. Over 1 million JWs left the religion. Many of them had sold their homes, had passed on life-saving operations because they believed that the lies they were being fed, and they are still being fed to this day. The religion recently created a new rule. I spoke to an attorney about this. He truly thought I was joking. It was called the two witnesses rule. It was created primarily to protect the abusers of children within the religion. No police are ever consulted. As per the overseer's rule of the community, I myself have been shunned. A lot of former JWs have ended their lives because shunning is very, very harsh. They have pegged me as an apostate, similar to how Trump would call the media who disagree with it, said it's fake news. Very sad. Marcus, I would say I prayed for you, but I don't believe in that crap anymore. I would actually endorse you, keep your head down and stay safe. I'm not sure that the Jehovah's Witnesses would ever kill anybody, but they are sure going to make people's life miserable. I had a lady in one of my churches that was ex-JW, and boy, did her former hall just give her shit. All her family disowned her and wouldn't talk with her. They put a lot of psychological pressure on her, but she was so happy to just be out that she refused to go back. But yeah, I can see, because I know a lot of things that do the two witnesses rule. Well, you say you were sexually molested, you don't have any witnesses other than yourself, so it's not enough to take action. I think the Catholic Church does that. A lot of religious organizations do that to protect their leadership. Marcus Bronze again. The heads of the JW are 8 older men based in Warwick, New York. New headquarters for the JW is the rank and file refer to these men as the governing body. The government is supposed to be spoken by Jehovah God himself based on what they are told. Then they produce new magazines and tracts books. Then they take the verses of the Bible out of context and make the JW publications seem to be truthful. It is sad to say, but many JWs lack proper education. If they were more informed, they would see the hypocrisy and the greed of the powers that be. That's one thing about the Jehovah's Witnesses I did know, is that they avoid higher education and they discourage it. And I think it's because if you do get informed, you eventually realize that there's a lot of problems with it. And so, it's going to be one of those things where, they keep people ignorant in order to keep control. And this is actually, it's information control at its finest. Who is the name of the only true God according to Jesus Christ? Matthew 6, John. Doesn't matter. I'm going to be blunt with you. Visu, doesn't matter to me. Okay? I don't care what Jesus Christ reportedly said. I think Jesus Christ is a legend that grew out of control. At worst, he might even be a myth. Okay, there's absolutely no evidence that he even existed outside of the Bible. So it's purely Bible told me so. It's possible that he was a Jewish rabbi that was killed by the Sanhedrin and then crucified by the Romans to do so. But the reason we never found his body is the Romans put crucifixion victims in a mass grave. How would you identify his body if they did that? I don't really see Bible verses to an atheist don't mean shit. I hate to be that rude about it, but it just doesn't mean it. I have a degree in biblical studies. The only reason the Bible means crap to me is when somebody wants to make a biblical argument against atheism, and I look them in the eye and say, you keep using your Bible and you don't seem to understand what it actually says. I can use the Bible right now to give you 100 million things that the Bible tells you that are, and I'm exaggerating there, by the way, just don't take me, I really hate it when people when I do exaggerations like that and they take me literally. It's ridiculous. Of course I'm exaggerating. But there's tons of examples where the Bible admonishes evil action in more conventional war terms. It's just not right. Lacey, 13. I haven't heard from you in a while, I don't think. And have you checked out Dr. Dennis McDonough's ideas that the Iliad and Odyssey from Homer? parallels the Bible, specifically the death of the character named Hector and the Jewish crucifixion. It's pretty interesting. You know, I think, as I recall, there are a ton of parallel thoughts between certain types of mythology and the biblical story. Here's the thing. I believe that the life of Jesus Christ is possibly part real. And the reason I say that is that the early Gospels don't have any history of who Jesus was. All they have is some of his teachings. Okay? So my theory, and I'm not a mythicist, I think Jesus of Nazareth may have been a real person. Although I will say this to you mythicists, you might be right. I'm not here to argue with you whether I'm right or wrong. I can concede the point that the mythicists that Jesus Christ was a complete myth might be correct. The difference for me in all of that is this, that I think what Jesus Christ is maybe possibly a rabbi who preached some very controversial things that the Sanhedrin didn't like and the religious leaders didn't like, and they found a way to get him killed by framing him. I think he was crucified. So being crucified is not beyond the realm of possibility. They would have thrown him in a mass grave. His followers, being grief-stricken, it wouldn't have taken very many of them to kind of hallucinate and then spread the story. You know, people always get that wrong. Oh, it's mass hallucination. That's not possible. I'm not even condoning a possible mass hallucination. I was in the Pentecostal church. One person saying they saw a vision of something over in a corner, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the entire church saw the vision in the corner, not just one person. That's how that works. I've seen that happen. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility in my mind or anywhere that Jesus is purely, somebody had an emotional experience of grief and loss about Jesus Christ, and they just like, oh, and they see Jesus. And the next thing you know, this person over here is seeing Jesus, and that person's over here saying, well, they're not really seeing Jesus. They're coming up with stories. And then you have all this oral tradition, all this stuff that just kind of blends together. There's at least, even if you take the most conservative evidence, like this 20 years of collusion. But also you make an excellent point, Laisley, because I think a lot of the miraculous stuff may have been inspired by other mythologies. The virgin birth, common myth. Resurrection stories, common myth. Miracles, walking on water is not as unusual as people think it is. Basically, you take the same kind of miraculous stuff that you see in other things, and then you just kind of push it the other way. So that's kind of what I think happened. It just grew out of hand. And if you put the Gospels in chronological order, you will see this. If you include all the other ones that are pseudepigrapha or whatever, or false Gospels or whatever, and you put them in order, you'll see that. You'll see, some of the teachings of Jesus Christ preserved, a little bit more of that. And then it's like, all of a sudden somebody, well, what about his life? And then Mark writes his gospel. And Mark is the least miraculous gospel. It has no virgin birth story, and it has no resurrection story. Okay? The longer ending is obviously an addition to me, adding a whole bunch of stuff to clarify, the other, and make it gel with the other gospels. But if you take that stuff off, there's no resurrection story, there's no virgin birth. It takes Luke and Matthew doing that. And then John does a resurrection story, but the whole virgin birth is condensed down into this theological, preamble. And the whole point of me saying that, and then the other gospels, you go off into they get weirder and weirder until you got a talking cross and all this other crap. And it's a real growing legend where the story just got bigger and bigger. It's a tall tale. And that's why I call my one series A Tall Tale of Jesus. But yeah, I think you could take any mythology and compare it to Jesus, and you'd find the parallels, especially ones that were written before Jesus. Well, that's it for the comments. Another lengthy one. I'm really sorry about that, but I think probably what I'm going to start having to do, if I continue to get as many comments, I'm just going to have to read them ahead of time, condense it down into a few items that I need to talk about to kind of answer questions, and that'll be it. In the meantime, I hope someday that maybe I could convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a great day.